All right, we are so happy to have you here in a sort of debut webinar sponsored by Perkins School for the Blind and the Teen Initiative that is here to support a lot of learning coming down the pike. TEAM stands for Tech, Equity, and Access in Math, and it's a group of folks working to create tools you can use now to improve how you work with students with all the new math coming down the line. And today's topic and for the next few weeks are focused on strategies for teaching tactile readiness skills and tactile graphicacy. I'm delighted to welcome Tina Herzberg and Susan Osterhaus, who are part of our TEAM initiative. My name is Leslie Thatcher. I'm the Director of Program Development and Strategy at Perkins School for the Blind's Transition Center, and am thrilled to be here today. I have a couple housekeeping tips. This session is being recorded and it will be uploaded to the website landing page that we emailed you earlier today. It'll be uploaded by the end of the week. Please feel free to watch this again, share with your colleagues, spread the wealth among your friends and colleagues. We did have some people ask about capturing what's discussed in the chat. It's a really popular question we get in a lot of webinars. And we will be putting the conversation and resources that are discussed in the chat in a document on that landing page as well. Amanda sent you an email about this landing page, but we'll put it in the chat right now so you have access to it and kind of know where to bookmark. This will be where information and recordings for all three webinars will live. So without further ado, I believe I get to hand the reins over to Susan and Tina. Take it away, my friends.
Well, hi, you want me to go first? Hi, I'm Tina Herzberg, and I'm a professor at the University of South Carolina Upstate, and I'm absolutely delighted to be here because I have to tell you, three of my favorite things in life, for those of you that know me, Braille, tactile graphics, and math all wrapped up. It sounds like a great combination for me, so I'm really excited to be here. Susan, you want to introduce yourself a little bit before we get started?
Okay, I'm Susan Osterhaus, and currently I'm the statewide mathematics consultant in the outreach program at the Texas School for the Blind and Visually Impaired in Austin, Texas. And Tina already stole my thunder because Braille, especially Nemeth code in my case, math and tactile graphics are my favorite three as well. And I'm also, just in case you need to know this, I'm also a member of the BANA Tactile Graphics Committee. So if I talk about certain things and saying we, it really is we. Okay. And I'm going to let Tina go ahead and get started though, because we have a lot to cover in a small amount of time.
So our objectives for this evening. First, that you will be able to identify the skills and concepts needed in order to understand tactile representations of pictures used in math. The second one, describe the hierarchy of tactile skills and its importance to tactile graphicacy in math. And then we also want you to be able to share 3 strategies for teaching tactile readiness skills to young students, as well as identify 3 resources that can be used to teach tactile readiness skills to young students. Leslie, we're ready to go to the next slide. So just very, very briefly, what do we know from the research? And this first bullet point, I don't think is going to surprise anybody with us tonight. That STEM content is heavily dependent on visual information, and many times it's included in charts, graphs, diagrams. And then I worked with Tiffany Wild and Penny Rosenblum, and a couple of years ago, we sent a survey out, and it was completed by teachers across the United States. And we asked them, what kind of graphs are your tactile graphics are your students being introduced before the end of 5th grade? Well, they identified 45 different types of graphics that their young students were being introduced, and 30 of them were math related. 30. That's a lot of different types of graphics. And just understanding that we approach different types of graphic differently. So what were some of the most common ones? Not going to surprise you probably either. Basic 2D shapes, 10 frames, base 10 blocks. Now these are all tactographics. Pictures of dice and dominoes. Pictures of pie pieces to represent fractional parts. Bar graphs, number lines, and 3D shapes such as the cube. I have to say, the 30, I was like, wow, that's a lot of math-related tactographics. What do we know from the research? Well, we know that formal graphic instruction, math content, where they are in their math content level, the frequency in engaging with graphics, how often are they given the opportunity to engage with graphics, and problem-solving abilities. All four of those things are positively related to being able to find specific items on a tactographic and then being able to actually interpret the tactographic. What does it actually mean? So, number one, that they're getting tactographic instruction, that they are progressing in their math content knowledge, that they're given the opportunity to engage with graphics on an ongoing basis, and that they're able to kind of problem solve. So we have also learned in a couple of different studies that the type of graphic medium actually impacts student performance. So Kim Zebahazy and Adam Wilton from Canada, what they did is they had, it was 40 to 50 students. And so what they had, some were print readers and some were Braille readers. And so they asked them to complete different kinds of tasks with the different kinds of graphics, depending if they used large print or tactographics. And what they discovered is actually the students that were using the print graphics tended to be more accurate than the students that were using Braille graphics. And then it's been almost a decade now, but Penny Rosenblum and we interviewed 12 different students. And before the interview, we sent this series of tactographics. And some were made with a P-off, some were made on an embosser, some were actually thermoform. We had to send that out to have some help with that. And then we also sent some that were in collage. And so it was interesting to us that those 12 students that more tended to be accurate with the P-off and the emboss than the thermoform and the collage. I did not really expect that. And then the one thing that I really took away from ours is that some of the students, as a matter of fact, a lot of the students, only like 30% of them actually answered the measurement problems correctly. So when they were asked to measure something, and we're talking like one thing was like a half an inch, and they would give us like estimates, oh, I think that's going to be about 6 inches. And then even after they measured it, yep, that was 6 inches. And you know, these were all middle and secondary students. And so it was just like there was not really a concept of like how long an inch actually is. And then when Zebahazy and Wilton were doing their study, is that they noticed that there was a reduced accuracy related to geometry. And what they were actually having them do was to find the area of a shaded area within a rectangle. And the students really struggled with that. So just two things to kind of think about. So we thought it might be helpful for all of us to kind of have a similar understanding of what is tactile graphicacy and why is it important? So we're defining it, Susan, Sarah, and I, as the ability to read, interpret, and create tactile graphics. And yes, I think it's super important that not only can our students read and interpret, be able to create their own. You know, that really helps us know what they understand and demonstrate what they're understanding. So what do other people say about it? So Zebahazy and Wilton, they said that graphicacy encompasses both the ability to understand and to create graphics. So they kind of agree with us. I always like that. Smith and Smothers, they report actually that tactile graphicacy is the cornerstone of data analysis. And then the last one, Penny Rosenblum and several colleagues, they assert that developing these tactile graphicacy skills is essential for students who are blind or have low vision for them to be able to be successful in STEM subjects. Because y'all, if you're not able to access information, charts, graphs, and tactographics, it's really hard to progress in your STEM learning. So I really like Kim Zebahazy's model of graphic interpretation. And what she does is she has this model that really kind of explores that all the things that have to be in place in order for students to be able to interpret tactile graphics. So it's not just four. It looks at first like it's going to be four, but really that strategies is twofold. Is you first of all, you got to have your like technical skills. That do you have like your systematic scanning skills? Do you know where you'd find the title? Do you know where you might be able to locate your key? And then you also have to have those thinking skills, like kind of like recognize that where would I find that information? Or I'm not understanding this. What other place can, oh, maybe I should look and see if there's a title. That might give me a hint of what this graphic's about. And so those strategies are the first thing. And then especially in math, that content knowledge is super important too. That you kind of have that like that mental map of what is a rectangle or what is a triangle. Part of it is the quality of the graphic, y'all. I've seen some graphics that were really difficult for students to navigate because they were not terribly well made. And then I've seen some that were so excellent that it actually made life a lot easier for the student in being able to interpret the graphic. And then this confidence and motivation, this is really important that our students, they build those confidence skills that hey, I know how to do this. I interact regularly with these and, oh, this is a bar graph. I know what I need to do first. I know what I need to do second. And so all those things tied together is really what leads to interpretation of a tactographic. So this one is according to Lucia Hasty and Wilkinson, and this is a direct quote from them. Learning to read, interpret, and create tactographics is a developmental process grounded in children's experience with real objects and their grasp of spatial concepts related to themselves, objects, and items on a page. And
Tina,
the one
jump in and say that that's my graph, but you read it perfectly. And the only reason I'm jumping in.
Jump on in. Hey, sorry about that.
Well, the reason I wanted to jump in is I wanted to tell everybody a little bit about Lucia Hasty. She is retired now, but she was herself a teacher of the visually impaired. She was the chair of the Tactile Graphics Committee for BANA, and she worked with the Canadians as well to make the first guidelines and standards that we had for tactile graphics back in 2010. And she invited me personally to join them. And so I just really want people to know about her and the fact, because a lot of the people that are on the BANA committees are transcribers. She was that as well. She was just, well, she still is. She's still wonderful, but I just wanted everybody to be sure that you knew about her. Okay. And that's okay, Tina. I just had to jump in though, because I wanted to talk about Lucia. Okay, keep going. So some of the things that we wanted to talk about were building mental images. And this is taken from Harold. First of all, we have to have exposure. We want active involvement with real objects, simple tactile pictures, and Braille. And in addition, with the exposure, we also want them to have the development of concepts such as car or chair, which, one would hope that one could tell the difference between a car and a chair, but you maybe begin to identify some characteristics, like a car and a chair both have, they have four legs or four tires or something like that. But anyway, identify those characteristics for some of those things. But in addition to having that exposure, they have to have that experience. They have to have shared experiences and opportunities to tie all these things together. And we want to begin always with the concrete before we move to manipulatives and abstract concepts. Okay, let's keep going. And we're going to build talk about building mental images more. Besides those, we also want them to explore. They have to independently explore to gather information, and it requires the following skills: spatial awareness, scanning skills, part to whole assembly, tactile discrimination, language vocabulary. And we definitely want enthusiasm. And if you can't tell, I have a lot of that, and that's what we want in our students as well. Okay. Uh, and uh, building, we want to have that enthusiasm or that curiosity, which increases as children successfully explore successfully. And we want to use the zone of proximal development and build on students' strengths and skills. So when we're doing this, we want to build on those strengths and skills because that increases their success rate. We don't want to build on any fears or anything. We want to build on their strengths. And that's what this zone of proximal development is. It's the difference between what a learner can do without help and what they can do with guidance and encouragement from a skilled partner. Notice there was nothing about cannot do. It was always can do it. That's our emphasis. And we do have a picture here of a real cake with lots of candles lit up. And then you can see the transformation to a tactile. And in this case, I guess I would just say a print graphic of a cake and so forth. But I'm sure that you can realize there's a big difference between the real thing, a tactile graphic, or a representation of it. And we have to get them from the real thing to that other image. And we need all of these things that we were just speaking about to be able to do that. Okay, Leslie, next slide. We have to start early. Now, I didn't mention the fact that for about 30 years, I taught secondary mathematics. Yes, secondary. But now I'm in the outreach program. And all the time that I was teaching the secondary students, I was thinking to myself, why didn't they do this before they got to me? I had to do so many things as a secondary teacher that should have been done way earlier. So I am a big advocate of starting early. Okay, so start early. Label your everyday items. Think about the kitchen with simple tactile symbols. Read aloud to your children. And that means I'm talking parents and paraprofessionals, teachers, anybody that wants to read. Read aloud to the children. This will familiarize them with the language of the books and help develop their vocabulary. And always use real objects to supplement those tactile pictures in those books. Create tactile books yourself with the students as well. I mean, we want them involved with different textures and shapes based on their experiences, their interests, and their preferences. And model how to open up that book, explore the tactile pictures first, then have them track across the braille, even if they're too little to read anything. That's what we do with sighted kids. We have them, all the words are right there. They can't read those words yet when they're that young, but it's there. You're just letting them know those are words, whether they're in braille or they're in print. Let them know they're there, and then even show them how to turn the page. And would you turn the slide? Okay. So some simple tactile symbols that we're talking about. What are we talking about? We're talking about bump dots. There's a picture of some bump dots that you can get wherever. Textured paper. We do have some textured paper there that happens to be from APH. That's on quota funds, federal quota funds. Go have fun with all of this carousel too in this case. A small object that reminds a student of an item. Okay, just some small thing. Scented stickers. Every child loves stickers. So put a little scent with them and you've got what our kids would just absolutely love. And of course, everybody's favorite, we've got Wiki sticks. And I want you to notice there's a nice little box of Cheerios, and that was Tina. Tina made that cute little tactile symbol on top of the Cheerios box. So everybody, we have to compliment Tina on her cute little tactile representation there. Thank you, Tina. Okay. And Tina, you better jump on me if I skip into yours. I don't think so. I think I'm still going strong. Okay. Now we've got promoting those early tactile skills. Okay, so now you know some of those tactile skills. How are we going to do that? We're going to match real objects by size, shape, and texture. What are we talking about? just go over to, I love being in the kitchen. You can tell that. Okay. Not that I'm a great cook. There's just so many fun math things in the kitchen. Math is everywhere. So if you go over to the kitchen, if you go over there and think about it, the forks and the spoons and the knives, maybe not the knives, well, get dull knives. Anyway, the kids can go ahead and sit there and do that for you. They're all the same size and shape, and then they're going to get to understand what a spoon is and what a fork is and so forth. Assemble building toys and blocks. Sort objects looking for similarities in either color. Now, I mentioned color because some of our kids who are blind and have to use Braille eventually, some of them can still see color. So if they can see color, make sure that you've got some color around. Shape or size. Sort objects looking for differences, like which box is bigger, which one is smaller. Okay, touch and manipulate containers, shape sorters, and puzzles. And in this particular slide, we have a picture of I think that one of the latest puzzle the things. It's a cute little box, very, very nicely made. And it has lots of different 3D shapes like star and circle and so forth that they push through. Myself, I had a mailbox where I put the little shapes through the holes. My daughter had a Tupperware one. There was another one I used to show on some slides, but you can only get it on eBay, which was Leapfrog Ship Ahoy, and it would make noise in it and tell you what you were putting in. Whatever you've got, our kids notice. It doesn't have to be made accessible. It's already accessible. And Tina made this too. She made this little marble road here, if you notice. So she's got these are like Legos, and they've got the letters, the Braille letters on them. And then we've got the marble that'll go down the road between all those. Okay, keep it going. Let's move that next slide. Now we've got some ideas for early tactile books. Okay, so we're talking about counting books, baggy books. If y'all are going, what's a baggy book? That's, you're making your book, and then you have those little I love Ziploc bags. Everything goes in a Ziploc bag, So you put whatever's in the Ziploc bag, and the kid can open it up. The kids can open them and close them much better than me, just to let you know. Okay, shape books, experience books. You're going on an experience. You're going to put it in a book. Okay, texture and size books. Books with Braille labels and simple tactile graphics of familiar objects. Okay, positional and spatial concept books such as below, above, between, etc. We didn't have it here, but my favorite was Splish the Fish, but I think it's been discontinued from APH. If you can still find one, grab a Splish the Fish because I just love Splish. Okay, but you've got pictures here. It looks like somebody, whoops, back up. Let me just let them know that there's some that you can see that they put some kind of greenery together on that one. There's Going on a Bear Hunt from APH. There's a button book that somebody made up, and it's counting. You're going to be able to find all of this. And if you go to the Guide to Designing Tactile Illustrations for Children's Books, that is a guide by Suzette Wright, and it's available from APH, and you can just download it for free. Okay, now you can go, Leslie. Okay.
Thank you.
All right, so now we're going to flood the chat. This is flood the chat number 1. And I'm going to go 1, 2, 3 in just a moment. So when I go 3, you can just flood it. What is your favorite activity or resource for promoting early tactile skills? It can be something we mentioned or something you're already doing. It would be really great if you mentioned something that we haven't mentioned we don't know about, perhaps, or we may know about it, but we'll be happy to learn more about it. Okay, Tina, what's happening in the chat? Anything
Oh,
going on?
lots. Oh,
1, 2,
sensory
3.
tubs,
1, 2, 3.
texture books, APH tactile books, Oakmont. Oh, I haven't thought of Oakmont in a long time. Having a student create with Draftsman, Play-Doh, tactile fidget boards, Lego Brailles, Aussie. There's something with Aussies. I'm not sure about that one. I want to go back. And rough texture bones, Draftsman for sure.
Okay, Tina, you got to get going, girl, because I talked a long time.
Ooh, and making books from kids' drawings and their scribble drawings. I love these ideas. Thank y'all for sharing. And feel free to keep on flooding the chat even while we move to the next slide. So just a moment, let's talk a little bit about the hierarchy of tactile skills. Susan touched upon this, but we really want to start with the real object because we really want the student to have a meaningful association. So before we really can make comparisons, that we really understand whatever that concept is, whether it's of a domino, of whether it's a car, an apple, whatever it might be, that they know what that real object is first. And that's even before we get to like just a representation of that object before we even go to the like tactile, like graphic 2D representation of it. So now I will tell you that it kind of depends on where you read. Some people will say it's a little easier to first recognize a solid embossed shape. Some people say it was outlines of objects. I think try it out with your student, kind of see which one works best. Before we move to raised lines that are solid and broken, before we ever move to symbols. I will tell you, I don't know if anybody's familiar with Anna Swenson's Mr. Nobody. I can use Mr. Nobody, which is just like 4 full cells. It's amazing how much you can do with just that Mr. Nobody and with lines. So we have a picture of a domino and then the representation of what a tactile graphic might be. And if I remember right, I actually got that from the APH Tactile Graphic Library. So I will say that I believe also for the birthday cake, we also found that picture from APH's Tactile Graphic Image Library. So that's something, if you haven't checked out recently, they have a lot of nice things. And they're also going to be putting Monarch approved drawings on there as well. So if you haven't been there in a while, it might be a great place to check out. I was really pleased just how many things they've added to it. Leslie, we're ready to go to the next slide. So moving from real objects to more abstract representations. And we gave an example, I think, of probably one that we might even all first think of from the cup to where we have like a tactile symbol where it has like a half shape of a cup, then to the tactile graphic. So you want to begin with that whole object and then reduce it to a recognizable part, like a lid or a handle or part of a cup. And sometimes we even want to like pair that object with that object symbol first, and that's okay. So be really careful with like miniature objects. Do they have those same kind of characteristics? And sometimes that really is not the case. So more about tactile readiness skills. That is really important that we help our students develop the language and vocabulary to describe what they are exploring and how that graphics relate to a real object. And this is something where we're going back to what Susan was talking about, that we can do a lot of modeling and that students hear how we model that helps them to create that understanding and then also to have that language to be able to use themselves. And we want to talk about positional and spatial concepts. We want to talk about above, below, top, bottom, left, right, between. This will kind of help them when they are putting together every of those little pieces on that tactile graphic to create that whole. And even like understanding like, okay, oh, this is below and what, because that's very different than like if I was going to put an object above my table of like what that above might look like on a tactile graphic. And so sometimes it's like taking something very concrete they know about and what that might look like on a tactile graphic. We want to teach systematic exploration skills and basic scanning techniques. We have some ideas coming in just a little bit for this, but it's really important that our students are able to explore very systematically and that they're able to discriminate shapes, textures, lines. All of these things are really going to help them flourish when interpreting tactile graphics and really progressing in all their STEM learning. And then we also need them to be able to track lines and trace around raised line objects. We have some examples of that coming in just a second as well. So moving on. So first of all, that they have the background knowledge of a concept or an object before we give them a tactile graphic, because if you don't really have that meaningful association, it's really hard. And then realize that for us, that our students really have to have the graphs of the abstract. Like they have to know what the real thing is first. And so we really do want to start off with really simple graphics. So I will tell you, like the one of just the pink fuzzy texture on a Cheerio box. And so like it was intentionally with a circle. So I will tell you that, think about how reinforcing it is. Like if you have two boxes and you know that which cereal you like best. And if I can look at the top and I know if I'm like two or three, I'm like, yes, this is the right cereal I want. It's very reinforcing. And so we really can start with tactile graphics, just very simple ones before students really are just, before they ever enter school or just as they're entering school. So this is where if you're working with any early interventionist, that they can really kind of help pave that road as well. And then sometimes we have to say, hey, this is where this is going to be like on this box so they even know where to look. So building positional and spatial concepts. So as we know that sometimes there's reduced incidental learning. And so sometimes there's really this very much a need for explicit instruction in order to build concepts. So first of all, with position, it's just focusing on the relationship between that person and the location of an object. Spatial is broader. That's when you're looking at even the distance and the relationship between different objects. So we want to introduce and reinforce vocabulary above, below, top, middle, bottom, left, right, up, down, between, under. This list could have gone on. So if you're just already thinking, wait a minute, how many of my students now I want to introduce to an iPad, is you can actually reinforce a lot of spatial concepts using your iPad. There's some great games out there that will help you with this. And if you're ever looking for ideas, especially for the iPad, I'll tell you, Past Technology, they do a fantastic job. There's probably, at least 5 posts just on different apps that you can use to reinforce spatial concepts using an iPad. And then playing games. This to me is like a lot of fun. I will tell you, just like the classic Simon Says, oh my goodness gracious, that can be a lot of fun with it. So systematic exploring and basic scanning techniques. These to me are two just key items that we really need to introduce to our students, because it takes more time and it takes instruction to really efficiently explore and interpret pieces of information simultaneously with the hands. So we want to encourage our students, look for the title first. And then, there's more than one way to systematically explore, and depending on what kind of graphic it is, that might even influence how you do that. So is it going to be left to right with a pattern similar to reading? Is it going to be beginning at the upper left corner and we're going to kind of move down to the bottom? And then once we get to the bottom, we move slightly to the right and we go back up and then we move back down. Or is it I'm going to start in the middle? I'm going to kind of fan my fingers outward to find my edges and locate that key information first. So introducing different strategies to them, and so that they can kind of figure out, oh, I think this strategy would work really well. And it's okay to say, I don't think that was the best strategy this time. Maybe I could have tried and model that once again as well. So lots of different ways that we can scan, but that we have those techniques. So tactile discrimination of shapes. So we want to use age-appropriate yet accurate language to describe shape attributes. And so let me give you the perfect example that sometimes I'll hear, instead of using the word square, I'll hear the word box. So box and square are really not synonyms for one another. And so we want to be precise with our language. And I have to say, this is something I have to really be careful of myself. So don't worry if you're like me, it happens, y'all. We do the best that we can, but really kind of thinking with our math minds about what would the terminology be. And then sorting and matching shapes really reinforce that tactile discrimination of shapes. And I will tell you that there are a lot of the different kits from American Printing House for the Blind that have those different shapes that you can sort quite easily. Nemeth curriculum. This is something Susan and Sarah Larkin and I developed, and we're going to talk more about it. But there are a lot of ideas for teaching pre-kindergarten to second grade shape concepts included within the curriculum. And when you're working, especially with rectangles, sometimes it's really helpful to use hand under hand technique to show the student when we're talking about like opposite sides, what do we mean by that? So where would the opposite side be? And then that self-talk, that when we model that self-talk, that really helps our students be able to build, once again, that vocabulary and that language. And then when you're first starting out, especially when you're sorting rectangles and non-rectangles, you don't want to include a square because it's a special kind of rectangle and it can be just a little tricky at first, but don't worry, you'll definitely get there with them. So tactile discrimination of textures. So you want to begin with textures, y'all, that feel really, really different. So on the bottom left, this is actually an activity that Jody Floyd, a TVI here in South Carolina, created. And I just love this. And so literally she had these different texture cards. And so what I was going to do is I made like 4 like matching ones. And so I used burlap, and then there's a shape that's got a very different, almost like rough feeling, but very different than the burlap. Then there's a soft, almost like sheepskin. It's not really. And then it's like a piece of like a very soft coil. So what she would have her students is sometimes they would match, then sometimes she like give them 3 and say, okay, which one's different? Now, before her student was in like at the end of like kindergarten, there was literally like 300, and they would do it like a quick, like 2-minute warm-up activity. And I was amazing out of all those hundreds that she could like very quickly find things that match. And I was like, I can't believe that. She's like, yeah, we just done this a lot. And so she's gotten really confident with this. So introduce that vocabulary with rough and smooth and bumpy. And there's a tactile turtle. And actually, this is one that you don't even have to create. I'm all about that. We may have to check that out. I don't have that one, but it looked like it's going to be a fun game. And then you can also explore different textures with food. I'm like Susan, I love the kitchen. I'm not a great cook, but I love to eat. Well, it is a lot of fun to talk about textures when you're in the kitchen as well and with food. And you can even discuss how it feels. Creating texture books with students. So just for a little bit about the guidelines for tactographics. And this is Susan approved, just so you know, because she is our VANA expert on tactographics, that in general, a single graphic should contain no more than 5 textures. But if you're really talking for a young student, y'all, there should not be more than 3 textures. And so this is the other part, is making sure that we're doing something that's really manageable for them. And sometimes, y'all, we want to start with 2 before we even build up to 3 textures. And then teaching our students that sometimes when you actively like move your fingers across a surface can actually enhance that tactile discrimination of the texture. Just a nice hint. So we're almost ready for a second flood the chat. Tracking lines and tracing shapes. So I think we do a really good job of teaching our students to track lines, and especially like of letters and even like of shapes. These activities, y'all, can be really quick. This doesn't take a lot. The book by Anna Swinson, Beginning with Braille, has tons of fantastic ideas. Use it all the time. And then one little tip is that if you keep an index finger stationary while you use your other fingers to trace around the outline of the shape, it kind of helps you know when you have finished. So just a little tip there. On the book on the left, and if I think that might have also been a book from American Printing House for the Blind. What I love about this book about shapes is that it actually has an indentation where it makes it really easy for the students to be able to trace around the shape. And then there are some lines, and this is on the Teaching Touch curriculum. So yeah, that's something that if you're really looking for places like following zigzag lines, which is super helpful for tactographics, Teaching Touch is a great resource. And then on the far right, similar to the Draftsman, we have the intact sketch pad, and you can do shapes on it. They can draw them with stencils, you can draw them, and then they can trace around them easily as well. Mangold. Oh, I'm a huge Mangold Braille fan. So this is one that we think of, I think, sometimes for like introducing numbers and maybe alphabets. They just have a lot of really good like tracking exercises. And y'all, it's not just the letters and symbols. It also includes a variety of lines, including zigzag lines. And so there is one of the puzzles that we have here. And they actually on this puzzle give you two places where you can start, and you actually have to find your all the way to home at the very bottom of the page. Lots of fun for students. And you know what? The nice part is they can even like race against themselves. So, oh, you did that in 1 minute. I wonder if you could even do that in 45 seconds. Let's try again. Because once again, we really want them to build that efficiency and be able to move very quickly as well. So flood the chat. This is actually an activity from the curriculum we were talking about that is available totally at no cost to you from the Path to Literacy website. Has all the Braille files ready there for you. So what tactile skills are we reinforcing with this activities? So let me tell you about the activity. Is what you need are foam stickers, craft sticks, and flashcards labeled 1 to 7. This one's a Nimitz. It could have been in UEB just as easily. So what happens is that the students shuffle those 7 flashcards, and I love shuffling because then they're getting to use both their hands, right? They draw a card, they read the number on the card, and then they use the stickers to build the train on their craft stick. So this was 7, and yes, they did get 7. And if you add print numbers to the flashcards, they can play with all their friends in class. So what kind of tactile skills are being reinforced with this activity? Okay. Oh, wow. I see 13, 14 new messages. I'm going to turn it on. Okay. Oh, wait a minute. Oh, so some great other suggestions for what they like from the first flood to chat too, like real nature items. Excellent. APH setting the stage. Huge fan. Oh, and Mr. Nobody. I'm not the only one that likes it. Yes. Yeah. All right. Let's see what we have for this. What are we? Okay, what's the location again? I will, when Susan's talking, I will share the location for the iPad games on the Path to Technology. Oh, wait a minute, someone already did. Thanks, Jessica. Fantastic.
They're in the chat. They're talking about tracking, lots of tracking stuff, left and right.
Tracking left to right. That is a sequencing. Yep.
Scanning.
Tracking.
Removing and placing stickers accurately. Sequencing,
Oh,
one-to-one correspondence. Oh my gosh. Sir, all kinds of
That's
goodies.
absolutely true. And like beginning graph production. That's right. They're beginning to create their own graphs. That's exactly it. I love this. Counting, scanning, awareness, basic graph, switching tactile, muscle memory, one-to-one correspondence, horizontal. Ooh, we could talk about horizontal, creating a straight line. Wow, all these things that are going to help them be efficient readers of tactographics. Love it. We have one last one. Oh, APH flip over concept books. I don't know if it's in this presentation or the next one, but they're coming. We love them too. Thank y'all. We really appreciate all your great ideas. And so this is the beautiful part that we'll be able to share. And so hopefully you're going to leave not only with your favorite ideas, but you'll leave with like 10 other ideas to take with you.
And now we're going to talk about some resources. And since I'm watching the time, Tina, so I'm going to let you know these are fantastic resources, but I'm going to go through them pretty quickly, and you have links to get to them and explore them all on your own. The first one is Tactile Skills Matrix. This is from the American Printing House for the Blind. It's an alignment of their products to various tactile skills. And we just have one up there for shape recognition. You can see it's going to list all of their products. Some of them have been discontinued. I'm crying right now, but they give you links right there. So again, go there and find it to their tactile skills matrix and find what you need. Next slide. Teaching Touch Kit. Tina already spoke about that, and she showed you the curvy lines and so forth from there. It's another great resource from APH, designed for children aged 4 to 7, and it targets tracking. We heard that in the chat, searching using symbols. And you do have to purchase it, but it's on federal quota money, so go for it. All right, next slide. And this, I have to brag about this. This is from TSBVI, my home place. Early Tactile Learning Profile. Again, this is free. You just go into that link and you download this wonderful little booklet. It's free resource. It's designed for children chronologically and or developmentally functioning between the ages of birth to 5 years. It includes instructional resources, lots more resources for teaching specific tactile concepts and skills. It's got a checklist, evaluation, and lots of resources. Next, please. All right, hands-on materials and manipulatives for math. Okay, so here's some pictures of things. Again, we've even talked about some of these already. Wiki sticks, tactile 5 and 10 frames from APH. You got a picture there. Didacs, teddy bear counters. Everybody should have those. Omnifix cubes, in case you're not familiar, they're one of my favorites. They're not Unifix cubes, they're Omnifix. They attach on all 6 sides, so be sure that you get those. Base 10 blocks, and then some of my favorite DigiBlock store, classic block of 100. They're like base 10 blocks. Unfortunately, they do cost money, and there's a young lady in the right-hand corner that's using those. Let's go, next slide. Beginning tactile production skills. Okay, now a lot of people came to me and said, when my blind child, what are they supposed to be doing while all the rest of the kids are coloring? My child just sits there doing nothing. That is wrong. Okay, color. Our students need to be coloring. Color inside those raised line mazes at a young age. You can get them now from APH, Walmart, Tactile Vision Graphics, TheraPro, MaxiAids, View Plus, Amazon. Everybody's into it now. And let me just tell you, you need that when you get to secondary mathematics, because we've got to shade those we have all those graphics that are there with inequalities, graphs that have shading and so forth. And I'm sitting there as a secondary teacher having to teach kids how to color. No, it should be done. You need to be doing that way down there. And they can trace inside stencils on a draftsman board, a tactile doodle, or in-text sketchpad. A lot of people, stencils for blind kids, yes, they can feel everything. They can find each one of those vertices, no problem at all. Place peel and stick texture shapes onto paper to form those graphics. Use magnetic shapes, put them on a magnetic sheet. Use the Wheatley board to make pictures on their Velcro boards or their storyboards. Create pictures on the Braille writer. Use manipulatives, graph using grid paper along with tactile dots. So much stuff you can do. Next slide. APH Math Kit materials. If you're still looking for more materials, Math Builders Unit 6 Geometry Kit, my favorite of all those kits. You get a blue Velcro board and diagramming strips, plastic 2D and 3D shapes, a small set of Geometry, which is not big enough, a consumable pack. Then you have to go look in the under the orientation mobility section, but that's where you get the Picture Maker Weekly Tactile Diagramming Kit. Includes over 100 pieces in many shapes, sizes, textures, and colors. Those O&M people are doing math every single day. And then we've also got embossed crafts and many more things from APH. Keep it going. So next slide, please. And we've talked about the Nemeth Braille Code curriculum. If we go to the next slide, I'll show you a whole bunch more stuff from there. As Tina mentioned, from pre-K through grade 2, the curriculum in there teaches students to read and write the Nemeth Code within UEB context. It's got pre-K, kindergarten, first grade, and second grade materials. Everything's aligned with the Common Core state standards, which we don't use in Texas, but it's still fine. It aligns with our TEKS, we call them down there. It's great, even if you're not a Common Core state. Hands-on games and activities, and it includes teacher scripts, Braille-ready files for students, worksheets, answer keys, data recording sheets, review activities, and assessments. Next slide. And here's a little thing that one of the activities that we do at the kindergarten level, we take an APH hundreds chart, consumable hundreds chart. So don't think we're doing something terrible here. It's got large print and Braille on it, which we also love. And you cut it up into pieces, and then the student has to put the puzzle back together. Okay, next slide. Another thing that we do in the kindergarten we have a place value chart, which is on the right, which we made ourselves. And in this particular one, it's got tens and ones, and the student is supposed to use their cute little card that they can practice their skills on, which says 25. And if you look to the right on the place value chart, we've got digiblocks that show 10, 20, because there's each of those little things contains 10 of the little ones. And then to the right, we've got 5. That makes 25. Okay, next slide. In first grade, we have many, many different shapes, but this particular one is rectangles. So they have to figure out that those are rectangles, and then they write in the missing numbers from the 100 chart. I think it's, no, 120 chart. This is a 120 chart. So they're going to put those numbers in where you see all of those omission symbols. That means a full cell. Okay, keep it going. We're going to show you lots of things. And I think I may, am I about to get up to, I think I'm just about to jump on top of Tina. But Tina, I want to tell you something that we left off. So you have to tell people a little bit about we don't have it on the mazes. You know, they're my favorite. But anyway, this is your slide. So you go. But
Okay.
we took it
Definitely
all
talk about the
together and we
mazes.
forgot to put it on this slide. So tell them about the mazes.
So I think what I'd start with is that several years ago, we interviewed quite a few middle school and high school students, and I was shocked at how many of them talked about that they never had a chance to do mazes. I was like, oh no. And so when we heard that from them, we did. The things they said they never had a chance to do, those are the ones that we try to make sure that we included in the curriculum. So if you like mazes, we've got mazes for you. And then I'll tell you another place is that our Project Inspire website, we also have some mazes for older students there too. So you can't have too many mazes. But for the curriculum, there's templates for bingo cards. There's Connect 4 if you like Connect 4, place value charts, templates for 5 and 10 frames. Now I have to say these are ones that you can just emboss. I love the APH one, but if you don't have an APH one, it's a nice kind of backup. Roll and race game cards, shape activities, counting to 120 chart, find the path activity. It's almost like another maze, but you have to solve math problems to get home. And then actually this time it's to find your airplane. And then the detailed directions for making a counting book with real objects. So lots of things available in the curriculum. Oh, you know what? You can absolutely create mazes with the squid activity books are great. I'm seeing some great things in the chat, and I agree with every one of them. And you're right about the Legos. Y'all, there's so many things you can do with Legos. They can be a fun way to make a maze as well. So if you're looking for additional resources, well, number one, I'd say your colleagues here because they have a lot of great ideas. The Path to Literacy website, they have a tactile graphic special collection. And the Texas School for the Blind and Visually Impaired, especially the early tactile learning profile. The Paths to Technology, now all of these are links in your PowerPoint. Tactile graphics versus raised line drawings, what's the difference? Math Melodies app for young students, Tactile to Digital Part 1 Math Robot, Tactile to Digital Part 2 Math Melodies. If you're not familiar with these, I hope you'll check them out. Last, flood the chat because y'all, in 2 weeks, we're going to come back together, and I'm real excited about that. And so what we'd like to know is, what are your next steps? What is it that you would like to learn more about, or a resource that maybe you're going to try out, or maybe a strategy that you've discussed today or it's been in the chat? What do you want to take away? What's your game plan for the next 2 weeks with one of your students? Can't wait to see this. Hey, DigiBlocks look great. Oh, I wish they were free. That's something that make them better. Coloring ties to upper level math. It does. Check out the Path to Literacy website. Excellent. Love the Path to Literacy. I need a way to create a coordinate plane graph. Stick around after we finish, but I will tell you that you can easily do that with graph paper and graph benders from APH. Really easy to make them. And then you can even use like the pill and stick numbers with it. You can make them in minutes. Your students can make them in minutes.
Yeah, and after we're finished with this, some basic things, we'll even be showing you how to do those. We're leading up eventually to digital math, and we can show you how to do that online and so forth.
Great. And explore the Tactile Graphics library. I am so excited. Yay. I pulled out the Braille Lego today for my student tomorrow. I plan to use coloring pages and mazes. Excellent. Mazes and with the Legos. Nice. Yeah, the digital math, check it out about moving toward from the tactile to the digital and explore some of the resources that were recommended. Excellent. So really these are the foundational skills that really build for success in digital math, that really when we are spending all this time in teaching these early readiness skills, we're preparing our students not just for what they're doing right now in class, but we're preparing them to be successful in their future learning too. So I can't believe this.
Did we do
We'd
it?
love to hear from you. Thank y'all so much for hanging out with us on a late Tuesday evening. Hope you'll come back in 2 weeks. Going to hang out because I know there were a couple of questions, but we really appreciate y'all spending time with us and sharing with us.
Yes, thank you so much.
I think we are enthusiastic.
I think we have a lot of good stuff in the chat. Yes.
Yeah, I can't wait to, like, there's a couple of ideas from them. I'm like, yeah, I'm going to take that with me too. I look forward to seeing you in 2 weeks. And Elaine Morgan, I think I might know you. I'm glad you're here tonight.
Tina, there was one question that Daniel asked that I said, I know this is for our older students, but do you have a suggestion for the best way to scan scatter plots? Wanted to make sure you all saw that one.
So, we ended up doing a lot with the scatter plots when we did Mission Inspire with some middle school students. And with that, I think it's once again, I'm thinking for the scatter plots is I think sometimes just like kind of getting a feel for like like with that middle and kind of like scanning out just to kind of get a feel, like, is there like a concentrated area? But then I think after you kind of get the big sense, it's kind of going and really like looking on like all of and going very systematically from left to right, top to bottom, however you want to do it, but just make sure that you're capturing all the data that you need to get. Susan, anything else you would add with that?
Well, and of course, as we talk about, and we will be getting into that in the second and third about for them to interpreting and creating graphics. The more that they can create of those, the better understanding they will get. So them
That's
actually
exactly
wrapping up
what we
a
saw.
scatter plot, they learn so much and they get it so much better when they are involved in the creation of the graphic. So, but and I
But you're
love
right. I
I
was
still love the
amazed by
graphic, the old graphic aid for mathematics, the rubber graph board. I love plopping things down like that. But if they're having to look at a tactile, right now this particular webinar is just on readiness, but basically they need all of that. They need to know how to do all that, I think, to better understand a tactile graphic of a scatter plot. And again, it is hard because they're looking at individual pieces and they have to put it together to get the whole picture. Whereas we look at a scatter plot and we can visually
put it together.
We can see it's in a positive direction or it's in a negative direction or it's all over the place or whatever. But they have to put all those pieces together. Yes. And it's a technique of putting all those parts into that whole or into that big picture. They have to develop skills.
So our Braille dots weighted. Tell me more. I am happy to try. Our Braille dots. Our Braille dots weighted like real dice.
Are you saying, are they going to, in other words, are we going to cheat if we are the
I hope
dots?
not. Oh, when you roll them, well, our Braille dots weighted like real dice. So I will tell you that I've made them like with just like, I've made them like where the students can make them. We use it was like a small little mug box and they put the numbers on it and then they got to roll it. And I was amazed by it that it didn't seem to one number didn't seem to always come up, if that makes sense. And so it seemed to work out fine. Yeah, when we rolled them. And I was also really happily surprised that our Braille didn't mush too much either. I did use the harder plastic with it, like with the, I think if I remember, it was a pill and stick. Yeah, I love pill and stick, just in case. Yeah. But we had great luck with them. And, that to me is like another one of like making it really kind of reinforces again about like the numbering on the sides and even being able to roll. And they had a lot of fun with that.
Were there any other?
Daniel?
Okay, Daniel, did you have a question?
I had another question. In thinking about creating like a swell form of a graph like the scatter plot that I mentioned before, or other kinds of graphs, I was also I'm trying to understand what is the kind of optimum size. Like, should the graph take up a whole 10 by 10 sheet, or should it be smaller so it can be felt more completely in a smaller, that anyway, it's a question I'm trying to figure out how big to make them.
Well, but how many dots are also like, like how much is going to be plotted on your scatter plot?
Mhm.
Yeah, if you have quite a lot of data, and the transcribers will tell you they like the 11 by 11 and a half if it's
Yeah,
a
that's what I've got.
if a large graphic. However, some people, it just depends on what you have, or your paper. Maybe you have to do everything on 8.5 by 11 paper. And I meant to answer a question earlier, and I sent it to Amanda by accident somehow, and not to the rest of the group. In my case, I'm lucky enough to have all different types of equipment, but I use different, like I loved the P-off myself to produce things for students, more for geometry, because I could get the really crisp angles. But then for other things, I liked, like the if I was going to emboss something, I'd like the tiger, for that type of graphic, maybe in algebra. So it depends on your students, what they like. Some of them love thermoform paper and some hate it. Some
Yeah.
love that swell touch paper, some hate it. It's like you you kind of have to know your student and what they like and what they're able to use. And so I think when Tina got the research, when she had the what was it, you and Penny had 12 students.
Yeah, we had 12 students. So yeah, now well, I will say, because Penny and I just about 2 years ago, we did a very small study. It was only like 25 elementary students. But one thing we noticed is that how many of the students that had some residual vision preferred the P-off. And so I do think that if they have some vision, sometimes it's just it seemed like that, well, a lot of time it was their preference, if that would make sense.
Well, and
Um,
I'll confess that when I was for some of my students who really should have transitioned, I wanted them to transition to Braille, but I wanted them to make that decision, that choice. And sometimes to help them along, I would say, well, let me let me go ahead and create a graphic that's got print on it for you, but I did it on the swell touch paper so that it was black line, masters, very so they could see the black, if they could feel it. And then I would say, can I change the print to Braille? So I just kind of eased them into it, and they really liked that. They did that. So I'm thinking in terms of that was kind of that was a nice way to transition them over to Braille. But
I was
yeah, and probably I'm thinking, Daniel, is I don't know about you, but is that the easiest way? Do you have a P-off and that's the easiest way for you to be able to?
I do. Where I'm actually working on a grant where I'm trying to make a digital tool for data exploration more accessible. And part of that is integrating an AI that can dynamically describe graphs, but as part of, and sonify graphs as well. So this combination of verbal description, sonification, and I want to get to, but in order to help students understand what's meant by the verbal description and sonification, I feel like we're going to need to start with touch. And so I got a swell form printer and a Dymo Braille labeler for like the text part, because I think the swell form Braille is not super,
Oh, and
great.
to let you know that are you using the right font? There is a swell, I know this is going to sound like it's not true, but there's a swell Braille font, believe it's what
Okay.
it's called. And anyway, being on the committee, and they really, I mean, that's what this transcriber is also where you've got to use that font for it to,
All right.
otherwise I know what you mean. It swells. If you use a regular font, it swells up too big on the swell touch paper, and then it's kind of, so just to let you know that. And I saw, I did, not to cut you up, but I saw somebody
And
else ask
swell
this, where I used to, and I
paper
don't,
yeah,
I used
bulk.
to not getting it wholesale, but I remember we used to purchase it from, of all places, American Thermoform. It's not.
Oh, that's so funny. That's where we do it sometimes because it's cheaper.
Yes, it's cheaper. Yes. I was going to say
I don't know that it's in bulk, but it's cheaper. That's
but
exactly
it's
where
still
we buy it from.
expensive. It's still expensive. But some people think that it's no. I mean, they sell the thermoform machines, but they also sell a pee-off or a toaster type thing, and they sell the swell touch paper. So, but anyway, that's just, and I don't. I mean, I know it just, the price just goes up and up, and we're so happy with the.
Oh, and someone else said they also buy it from American Thermoform.
Oh, they do too. Okay,
Yeah.
so we've
It's
already
cheaper. I
got
looked.
three of
I'm
us
like,
are buying.
hey.
Okay.
Yeah, I can't remember what we were buying for, but we really needed a lot of it. And so that's,
And
I was looking for the best price.
And it's so funny because sometimes they have sales. I always, I know that's so funny.
I don't think I was lucky enough for a sale.
And they say we're going to do 10% off. So I'm like, oh, quick.
Then I would be buying in bulk.
You know? But and of course the when you've got the, let me see, what the draftsman or the, what's it called? Oh, I can't remember the new one, the doodle, whatever it is. And
Oh,
then
the tactile doodle.
Tactile doodle, and then
I love that too.
and then the other one, the easy sketch pad that we've used, they all use that film, which we love, but trying to get that film, the only source is APH, but at least it's on federal quota. But if you do that, if you use the draftsman or the doodle, be sure when you order it, I think it's only 25 sheets per order, you know.
Yeah, it's not very much.
So I remember one year I felt so bad because I ran out, and luckily the elementary teacher, she says, I knew to order a jillion. so she gave me some of her, I borrowed some from her, and then I ordered lots more and gave her more back, and so forth and so on. So it's great stuff too. And we were very conservative with it though. You know, we just,
yeah.
Every
they are
bit
expensive.
Yeah.
It's like, how many things can we possibly draw on our sheet?
And somebody just said, oh, look at this. Once in a while, towards the end of the school year, they have a 10% off sale. Okay, Susan said that before I could type it. Thank you.
I'll be looking in April and May.
So Tina, all they're doing is backing us up. I'm loving it. Well, you know, it's this kind of thing. This is where you need to be able to gather and network with people to tell all the good deals that we can get and so forth. And I see somebody said they love the doodle. And I'll tell you, the doodle is probably a little safer than I don't know if you've had students get pinched there, because I pinched my own fingers.
Yes.
The draftsman sometimes. So I think the doodle is maybe a little safer or whatever. And do we know how long the swell graphs last? Well, I still have some that I did a long time ago, but I think
it depends how much they've been used to and like where you're storing them. I mean, I think there's a lot of factors with that, but they're pretty like sturdy,
right,
and durable. I know I've used some for a couple of years at least.
Yes.
I'm all about reusing if we can.
Okay. I'm looking, I'm not seeing any. If you all put your hand up or whatever, or get our attention, we'll be, because somebody said they couldn't type it fast enough. So oh my gosh, Lucia Hasty's on. Lucia, did you hear me say some good things about you? I hope. Lucia, put your picture on and wave at us.
You're kidding. That is funny.
There's my famous Lucia. She's here. She doesn't. Maybe she does. Maybe she's in her pajamas. I don't know.
I say we like your work, Lucia.
I don't know where she is. How late it is. But anyway, Lucia was on. So she is
both
still
wanted to talk about you. Said, hey.
So we were. She is that. I say she's the queen of tactile graphics. Yeah.
What a wonderful place to
reconnect.
Leslie, and I'm just so thrilled, just the energy and enthusiasm and all these comments. Oh my goodness. So I think we should wrap up so you can rebuild your energy for 2 weeks from now.
Yeah.
It's a lot coming down the line, but we want to thank you all for joining us, and thanks especially to Susan and Tina for all the wisdom that you brought, and to Amanda Baldwin-Eastep, who has been engineering all the details behind the scenes and responding and letting folks in. And we cannot do this without all of you. And come back for more soon. Spread the word. You can still sign up for the next few webinars and get to have this wonderful engagement. So thanks to Susan and Tina.
Thanks to everybody. Have a good evening, everyone.